All right, conquer out the community. What is going on? We're here with the one and only Rich Froning. I don't need to give an intro about who he is. We all know who Rich is. But Rich, I want to thank you for taking the time to being on the show, and it's fucking pumped to have you here, bro.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it, man. I'm actually upset it took this long for you to ask me to be a part of the show. I feel like was it Miami in like 2013
Was it 12? It
maybe?
was like 2010 or 2013, that range.
Yeah, it was like that range.
And we saw Diddy. We
Yeah,
saw a
we
Diddy
did. I
concert
know.
together.
This whole Diddy stuff comes out. I'm like, technically, we've all been to a Diddy party, even though
Yo,
we've not been to a real Diddy party. It was at
right.
like some Miami club, and he came
Dude,
out and
it was at
performed.
Club Live. I remember. Is that Live? And Swiss Beats was there because we were there for Reebok,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And you and Hillary and Josh and I were upstairs, and all of a sudden Diddy comes out. It was fucking awesome. It was
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. And now the
Little
whole
did we
Diddy.
know he was doing some shady
Oh
stuff.
my God.
Yeah.
Little did we know about Diddy. I did ask you to be on the show one time in the past.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. You got so busy though.
Wow.
Something came up, and I was like, I'm not gonna fucking. For me, I'm like, I'm not gonna keep hounding him.
Hound me, man. I don't like if my problem is like I'll get a text message and I'll be in the middle of working out or something. I'll be like, oh yeah, I'll answer that, and then it completely gone, and people get so upset, and I'm like, I'm sorry. It's just I
Yeah.
suck.
Dude, your fucking day, your life is crazy, right? With kids, working out, it's 17 businesses you have. Fun fact, I don't think I ever told you this. I actually almost named my third kid after you.
Appreciate that.
Do you remember when you saved my life?
No, how
You
does
remember- See, all right. I only told a few people this story. I was at your spot for a couple days because you and I were doing a level 1 together. This
Yep.
was at your first house in Tennessee, I want to say. You know what I'm
Yep,
saying?
yep.
We had like the one in the corner of the street. And you took me to a lake, and we went climbing down the lake. It was me, you, and like a couple of
Well,
people.
yeah,
I forgot.
the would have been Waterloo.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it was crazy because we're going down the lake and you're fucking like jumping all over the place in the water. In my mind, I'm like, this dude has a games in 3 fucking weeks and he's just like jumping off fucking cliffs right now.
It's not like me at all.
Right. And then we get back and there's a waterfall we had to climb up to
Yep.
get out, right? And as we're climbing up, it starts raining. So you climb up and you fucking fly up there and I'm climbing up and I get to the very top and the waterfall was like, it was like almost, I want to say I'm not going to say fucking canyon, but what am I trying to say?
Yeah, it was down. It's down in a ravine type thing.
Yeah,
I
and
know
it's probably
exactly
it's probably like 15 feet, and there's all rocks and shit going down. There's like a bunch of rocks sticking up at the bottom, and I get to the top, and I grab something, and my hand slips, and I just start falling fucking backwards, and I'm looking down, right, and I'm like Joss isn't there yet. She was coming, and I'm gonna die. Like this, is like a 20-foot drop, pure fucking rocks and cliff. I'm like, oh, this is it. And I look up and I'm like, Rich. And all of a sudden, you stick your fucking hand out and you go, I got you, brother. And you grab my fucking arm and you pull me up. And I'm like, this motherfucker just saved my life on top of everything else.
Remember that?
Oh my God.
I remember that day. Like I was going down there, but I don't remember like you falling.
Dude, I was falling. I was done.
Oh, wow.
I was going to get seriously hurt. And I remember calling Joss and being like, this dude just saved my life. And she's like, what the fuck just happened?
Well, funny story. I do remember Darren, my cousin Darren's wife. We were there doing the same thing as we used to go down there all the time because it was real close to the house. And we were like, oh, let's just go cool off in the river. And she fell in and the current took her. And like she could swim, but not great. And it started like all I could see was her eyes. And Darren just left her. And I was like, oh shit, Jess. And so like I do remember that one. So yeah, hell. Nice.
Okay, this guy, yeah, saved my life. I was going to have my third kid named after you.
Oh man. Somebody asked what was it the other day? They said if I did the age group qualifiers, they'd name their son after me, and if not, they were gonna name him Dick. And so I was like, well, sorry, Dick, because Angelo always calls me Dick anyway. So
dude, so I'll have a ton of things I want to talk about, but we were just jamming about kid sports, which I thought was great because our transition into fatherhood and coaching youth sports, and we were talking about how much we love it. What do you think is the biggest thing for people to think about with coaching youth sports and coaching their kids? Because you, like, obviously you're Rich Froning, one of the fittest people in the world. You also played high level baseball, right? Did you play baseball at Tennessee?
yeah, I went to Walter State, which is junior college in East Tennessee, and then I ended up coming back to Tennessee Tech. Got invited to walk on, but I didn't end up doing it. Just because I was working full time as a firefighter at that point.
Right.
They were paying my tuition, so I did that. But man, baseball was like first love, right? When it comes to sports, and something, man, I enjoyed, and I always said I would never coach my kids, and I remember it exactly. Like I signed Trice up and said, there was a thing that said, "Would you coach?" And I was like, I would if, and you could put in the like comments, I said only, preferably assistant, and only if it's needed. And then, of course, there's not enough coaches, so I get roped
Hmm.
into it. Which honestly, man, I love the like interacting with the kids and seeing like their you get to do like, not to get too far in the weeds, but you get 4 keepers every year, and they've kind of been Trice's buddies. And so
Hmm.
we've been terrible because Trice was like or he wasn't too old. There's no reason for him to play t-ball. He could hit a ball out of a
Hmm.
pitched hand. He could do some of the other skills. So I was like, we're not going to play, chase the ball around. And so I was like, let's do coach's pitch. Well, all of his buddies are young, so we've got our faces beat in the past 3 seasons. I think combined the last 3 seasons, we've had like 4 wins, maybe. And so this year's the first year that's kind of like they're coming to like a decent age, and now we're like 7-2 or something like that. And so the boys are having a blast talking about how much fun it is. And it's been cool to see and be along with that ride, but it's also been tough for me. And I finally had the realization after at least a couple games in the first season, it's not about me, right?
Mm.
It's about fundamentals, teaching the kids fundamentals, and they got to learn to love the sport. I mean, I think, seeing some of the other coaches and what they do, there's a couple really good coaches. And then there's a couple that you're just like, I can
Yeah.
see you didn't make it far in life,
Right.
therefore you're trying to prove something,
Right.
like
Right.
we do basically you get 7 runs an inning, and then it switches no matter what. So
Okay.
like, dude, we used to like you kind of try to hide your players in certain spots, and catcher is sometimes a place that people get hidden,
Hmm.
and then, in the outfield, right? Well, we finally figured out that like dudes would just ball would be in the infield, and they knew our catcher couldn't catch, and they'd just throw it. And I'm like, dude, what are you like? You're up by 3
Right.
innings.
Yeah.
What
I
are we
know.
teaching them? And so like what I've done, and I've had a couple of the other coaches be like, hey, thanks. We've played some of these other teams that just like we beat a team the other night, and they were young. They're in the same spot we were in 3 years ago, 17-1.
Yeah.
But all we did after the first inning is one base at a time. The kids were so pissed at me for not like Trice was like, Dad, why didn't you let me run to third? And I was like, son, one day you'll understand, because not only are we like trying to help our kids, but we're trying to help those other kids,
Right.
because who
Yeah.
knows, you could burn out. Like, I think, obviously you're trying to affect your kids and have a positive influence on it. And you want to instill like, hey, life lessons of like, hard work pays off. Doing hard things and winning things. Winning's fun. Like I tell the boys, I'm like, how much more fun is it when we win? But we can still learn from like, I hate the like everybody gets a medal. I'm against that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But we're at this age, at a young age, like there's a lot of things to be learned.
Dude, I was in the same boat with my kids. I was like, all right, I'm never going to coach. I'll train the shit out of them and we'll do everything we need to do. And then I got in there, I think it was with Abby, because she was first and into baseball or softball. And you see some of the coaches, and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I gotta get out there. Like, I don't know what is happening. And then before you know it, I'm coaching everything. I think there's one year where I was coaching Cam and Abby at the same time. So I was going from like baseball to softball and like nonstop. And I wasn't a baseball player, so I didn't know anything about baseball, let alone softball. But it was like, I gotta
Still
just,
better than some of the alternatives. Even
yeah,
you probably would have a better perspective on it than somebody who has played. For me, it was hard in the beginning to be like, all right, how do I dumb this down? Not dumb this down, but how do I teach fundamentals? Because for me, even with CrossFit, stuff comes naturally to me. I just like
yeah,
I pick it up, right? And so
right,
over the years, I've become a lot better CrossFit coach, just having so many athletes to train with, not even necessarily coach, but now I can see and correct and do those things. And you don't have that, like the best experience is experience, right? And so trying to learn and teach and think about how am I going to teach it to them, man, it's been awesome for me, and just all walks of life, actually.
yeah, definitely. How many games do you guys have a night or a week? Are you out there
Usually
nonstop?
it's like we could be 2, it could be 4. Lakeland's about to start softball. Trice's season's wrapping up. We'll start flag football. I am helping coach that as well.
Of course.
Last
Yeah,
year was a disaster. It was, at those ages, it's tough, man.
yeah,
And it's so hard to disconnect the competitiveness. Like, yeah, you still want to win, but then you're like, this is my self-worth is not in how a 7-year-old shows up to play. Like the other night, the kids showed up and they had fun day at school where they have all these blow-ups and whatever. And, we've won to that point. I think we were 7 or 8-1 or whatever we are. And they showed up and laid a big turd. And I was just like, This is it is what it is. You know, like last
Yeah.
year or 2 years ago, I'd have been like pulling my hair out. And I actually found this guy on Instagram. If anybody gets into youth coaching or baseball, and I keep plugging him, Coach Ballgame. He partners with the MLB, but I went to one of his camps. I'm telling you, that dude, he's awesome. He had these
Coach
kids
Bogan.
eating out of his hand for 3 hours. He's like, fundamentals and fun. Teach the kids fun, and it's been a game changer for me. He's like, you know, at the games, you've already done the work. Just sit back, let them have fun, and it's
I just pulled him up on Instagram. I've seen him. The guy's great.
yeah, and you look at some of his stuff and you're like, gosh, that's so cheesy. But dude, meeting him in person was awesome, and then seeing how those kids just react to his stuff, it was a ton of fun.
Yeah, dude. For me, it was like you said, the disconnection of the competitiveness. You know,
Mhm.
when you're super competitive and you get out there as a coach, like you just want to compete and like you want your kids to do well. It's like they're fucking 10 years old,
They're
right?
10 years
It's
old,
like
man. Yep.
Joss came up to me one time. I think it was in like a basketball game, and I'm fucking losing my mind. And she's like, "They're fucking 11-year-olds. What are you doing?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't fucking know. You're
I
right.
don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't
Yeah, but
know."
it's still it's easier said than done, you know. Like what I found out though, you know, because I'm not competing at a high level of CrossFit now, but I still got to scratch that itch. We played in an adult Wednesday night softball league,
Yeah,
and that was fun. Like because we had a bunch of super competitive ex baseball players.
yeah,
One or two of them have egos, but everybody else was just out there. Yeah, we want to win, but also we're not going to like some of those dudes on other teams, like that affects the rest of their week. Yeah, we hated losing. Like, you know, when you show up and these like scrawny guys are just smoking, hitting vapes and drinking beer between innings and they're beating us and we're ex baseball players, you're like, something's not right. But it was still
dude.
fun to get out there and scratch that itch
I know.
and do
Wait,
it.
wait until your kids start beating you, dude. I was like, dude, Cam beat me in basketball the other day, and
Oh,
I was like trying, like I got pissed. I started talking trash to him, like I was like, I started backing him down, like I was mad, and finally
what am I doing?
yeah, like this is what I trained him for, to be able to beat me. Like this is
Yeah.
awesome, right? I'm
Yeah.
like, what are we doing here?
But still, you can't let them have it.
I couldn't, and
No.
I couldn't. There's one time we were it was during COVID, and there were these high school kids on the street. We were playing basketball, and Cam at that point was shoot, COVID that was a while ago, so I don't know, 8 or 9 or 10. So I was like, Cam, let's go play him 2-on-2. So we go play him, and I would go hard on these kids. And Joss would always be making fun of me because she'd be walking up and down the street, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, they're in high school. Like, they gotta, if they're gonna beat
They
me,
gotta
they have to
know.
beat me. Yeah,
They gotta know you're
yeah,
dangerous, right?
yeah, they can't
Yeah.
just. I would never play somebody when I was younger and expect them to let me win.
Never.
That's why people are soft, right?
That's what's wrong with this country.
Yeah, you're right.
The world, really, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And then I fucking hurt my hip.
Yeah.
My hip hasn't been better since.
You should have seen the 5 or 6 of us that walked in that morning. So the tournament for this, it was always double headers. So Wednesday was always a light fitness day around here.
Mhm.
And then the Thursday, we had 3 games. So like the tournament was you win and you keep playing, and it was all in one night. So we played 3 softball games.
Ugh.
And we're not the type that like, you know, you hit a lazy fly ball and you like walk to first.
Okay, you're
No,
running
like
hard out of the box.
you're trying to stretch it into 2.
Yeah.
And dude, by the time like the third game, everybody's limping around. And then the next morning, everybody was in shambles, you know,
Right. Yeah.
but it was awesome.
Will you let Trice play football? And this is a selfish question I ask because Cam asked me to play football, and I was like, you'll be good at football because you're super athletic. I'm like, but you don't. That's not your main sport, and your chance of getting hurt is so much higher. And then I said that to my friends who's a football player, and he goes, "Sounds like someone who never played football." I'm like, yeah, right.
You know, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna steer them the flag football route until maybe late middle school or high school.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I would have played football now. Like I did play my junior year. I'm saying this. I played my junior year. They put me at corner, which with no football IQ whatsoever is
It's
like
hard.
probably one of the harder
Yeah.
positions to play. Well, I dislocated my shoulder and tore my labrum. You know, in the first game that I started, and
Jesus.
so, you know, like but I wish having more football knowledge, which I feel like they can learn some of that. Some of these, you know, flag is a way different game unless they, you know, control some of that stuff. So I feel like kids can learn from 7-on-7s and stuff like that. I don't want to ruin Trice's brain. It's already, you know, he's already mildly slow anyway. He's a boy, and so I want to wait till his brain's a little bit more developed before I let him. If he gets to
Yeah.
where he's a, eighth grade or a freshman in high school, he's like, hey, I want to play. He's already like, Dad, I want to play tackle football. And we work on like him tackling me or a tackling dummy and getting his head out of the way and those types of things.
Yeah.
But man, there's a lot of toughness. I think there's a lot of value just in any sport, but I think contact sports especially, man, there's some stuff to be learned in that, some toughness. Like, hey, I played baseball. And when I played football, it was a way different toughness you had to have. Like I was hard nosed and a dirtbag playing baseball, but like football was when you get hit, popped that first
Mm.
time, like really popped, you're like, this is a different game. And so, wrestling, any of those like hand to hand type things, I think are super valuable for dudes. I think it's needed. So I'm open to it. I probably won't like push it. He's tried, like they started I think a 6U or a U local full pad league. And I was like, bro, there's nothing that I would love more to watch that kid, because he is all boy and wide open. I would love to watch him do it, but I just can't do that to his brain. He's just
Yeah.
not developed yet.
Yeah. No, I hear you. All right, let's dive into some few things. Let's get into it. What's the state of CrossFit right now?
How long did you say you want a podcast?
Yeah, I know, right?
I mean, in one word, fractured, and another word, lonely, or a wandering, I guess, man. It's feels like a power vacuum. It feels like they're grasping at anything they can. I feel like, the methodology is strong. We all know it works. There's all these offshoots that are great. I feel like it could be better under one kind of rallying point. I feel like CrossFit is that, but I just feel like the state it is in now, it's no good, right?
Yeah.
I
Can it
don't know
get
what.
can it
Go
get
ahead.
back? Can it get
Yeah.
back? 'Cause I look at it like this year, Rich, it was like I've owned my gym for almost 19 years, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, this year I did not want to reaffiliate. Because I'm like, hey, they jacked the fucking price up on me like 120%, right? That was
For
one
not
thing.
adding any value.
With no value. I'm like, I kept it for the competitors and the
Yep.
sport and my
Yep.
loyalty for CrossFit. And I'm like, that doesn't even fucking matter anymore, right? I'm like, my competitors, like, any fucking Joe can review the videos and ding him just because they don't like him or whatever it is. And
Popularity contest.
yeah, and I don't even know what it is anymore. I'm like, I don't even know why I'm still with it. And it has nothing to do, for anybody listening out there, with CrossFit itself, right? Like, I love CrossFit. I love Castro. I love everything about the sport and everything going in. I'm not trying to badmouth anything, but the overall,
What's the value, man?
yeah,
What's the value? There's no
right,
value. That's the hard part for me. We're same. Honestly, like what you just said, my gym's doing great. Like best numbers we've ever had. The actual physical location here at Mayhem is you walk in here and it's chaos, and it's the methodology. It's an advancement on the methodology, right?
hmm
Like I credit the base of what everything that we do to Greg, but it has evolved. You've evolved it.
right,
We've evolved it.
yep,
And that's okay, right? Like we've learned through the years, and I feel like the name CrossFit we all have this weird loyalty to, because we know under that banner, yeah, you're doing something a little bit different, but we're all doing the same thing. Like I had this epiphany when we went overseas and did Coaches Congress. It was an incredible event. Like we're 6 time zones away. There's 400 different gym or affiliate owners all speaking different languages, but it's the same people, man. It's the same type of people. Everybody can do CrossFit, but not everybody can do CrossFit.
hmm
Like they just, like it attracts people, that like-minded people that want to do hard things, right? That's just what it does. And that has not changed, right? But there's just no focal point. There's no rallying point. We don't get to come together once a year for the CrossFit Games, because it's just kind of, what is it? Like it's tough, man. It feels like a power vacuum ever since, you look at I always say the like 2017-18 year, where when Greg got rid of the media team, I think that was a huge no-no. And I think, we were showing kind of what the tip of what was possible with the methodology, and it would bring people in, and they would, maybe not, or they would know they can't aspire to that, but they can be a part of that and support that. And I feel like Greg flipped it on its head, and ever since then it's been just, going down. And so it's hard. That's a long-winded answer to say, I don't know.
yeah. I never understood their actions because I think it was like at Carson. To me, Carson was awesome, and I know they definitely like went in the red on what it costs to get there,
For
but
sure, but it's a marketing thing, to me,
Yeah, and it was so good. Like the community, the crowd, the events, the athletes, the connection between the athletes and the community, like it was at an all-time high. And then all of a sudden they went to, was it at Madison, right? When they just
Madison.
kind of took everything out and changed everything.
I think the first year or two in Madison were okay. I didn't mind, like, like you could get lost in Carson with it's LA, like it
Yeah.
didn't need the CrossFit games. When you went to Madison, you're like, like some of these bars are doing CrossFit things, and
Hmm.
we had the campground and we did that type of stuff, which I thought was great. And so honestly, to me, it was the whole media shift, the basement fitness, working out on that weird gross couch with the jugs. Like
Yeah.
there
Right.
was
Yeah.
such, it was just such a 180 that it just, for me, it didn't make any sense. And honestly, I mean, other than the CrossFit games and level ones and level twos, what did CrossFit really offer then?
Mm.
Not
Yeah.
much,
Not
other
much.
than the branding and the marketing, which is fine. They weren't charging a ton, and it was what it was. But if you're going to ask for all this more money, what are you going to give me in return when you're not doing the thing that you were doing when I was paying you $1,000?
Right.
So yeah, man, I think it's been a power vacuum. Like to me, it felt like that whole thing happened because Greg went on his little like
Hmm.
thing after the NSCA and Coke, and Dave kind of grew in his shadow, and then it felt like Greg kind of came back and was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, Dave, you've gotten too big, and let me knock down your sandcastle." It's what it felt like from the outside slash inside.
Yeah.
Like you've been on the inside of your level one staff, and you've been a 19-year affiliate. Like we've been there. And
Yeah.
so there's just never been a like, hey, what do you guys think? Hey, let's get some of you guys together that've been here a long time, and how can we fix this thing or right the ship or any of that?
Yeah, they never. I feel like Greg has done that a lot, right? With people he thinks get too big and kind of pull from him, and because Dave was crushing it with the
Crushing
games,
it.
crushing it. It
Crushing it.
was fantastic. Like I love the book he put out. I thought everything was perfect. I'm like, what is going on right now with him? When Greg tried to like crush everything down. So, what do you think is needed? Well, let me back that up. Do you think it could even get back to some form of level? And if it can, what would be it? Because you look at like the World Fitness Project coming out, like, right? I'm not even gonna talk about
Yep.
High Rocks because that's
Yeah,
different
yeah.
and whatever. But
Different.
World Fitness Project, like I think it has some. Like if you were still competing, right? It's like 8 years ago. You might look at the World Fitness Project and be like, wow, I can get a pro
I could
card,
make some money.
make some fucking money, travel around the world and compete. Like you're like, okay, this has some legs if it can be sustainable.
It has legs. I think there's got to be a connection to I mean, it all comes back to the community, man. Like that's what makes this thing so special. We were talking about this morning. Anybody can type into Chat GPT or AI a workout, right?
Right.
But what you can't replace is the community. It's what you've created at your gym. It's what you've created with your competitors. What's what I've tried to tell these athletes is like you have to get involved with the community for them to support you, or else you're just a flash in the pan, and when you're done, you're done. Like if there's no connection, they're the ones that are going to pay your bills, they're going to buy your stuff, they're going to this, as much as money is a bad word, like that's how you're going to give content back, you're going to give these things back, or entertainment. And so I don't hate the WFP model. I like the having more opportunities to compete. I enjoyed competing. Honestly, I loved the sanctional model a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard to track and hard to follow for people that were, like, I feel like WFP is a move in the right direction. You earn points throughout a season versus one event that your whole livelihood ends on. I feel like you could partner with Rogue, give them an event, WFP gets an event, different Wadapalooza as an example. Like there could be a, tennis or golf style with the
Mm-hmm.
games being the culmination of the championship, right? Where people can still make money. But it all has to come back to the athletes having some connection to the community, or it won't work.
Do you think CrossFit could get back on its head?
I think maybe with the right leadership, and if whoever buys it is okay with not making money initially and being in it for the long haul and trying to fix some of the things, then yeah, absolutely. But it's going to need some major overhauls, some major fixes. I feel like, you've carved out a piece, we've carved out a piece, Tia, Matt, everybody's carved out a piece, but we can all be better under that one name.
Yeah.
It is what it is, and it's better for all of us when it's better.
I always not fascinated, but I was always curious why CrossFit never brought a bunch of us together. They even brought you in. Hey, Rich, you've been here forever and everything, been at every level. What are we doing here? What's happening? What do you think we need to get back, right? Or even like bringing in a bunch of the people that have just been around since day one and be like,
Yeah.
guys, they've never done
Bring
that.
in your longest running affiliate owners. bring in, like 10 of them, bring in, the athletes that have left the sport, but have still kind of stayed true to the sport and been a part of the community. Bring in new athletes, bring in coaches. Like, hey, we're not going to take all of your critiques and all of your ideas, but let's, let you guys break out into groups. Let's have somebody then let's all come together, and how can we do this thing better? Because it is awesome. Like, we know that, know that with your gym, like, it's awesome. And we just got to tell that story. And we just not been able to tell that. There's been nobody to tell that story, I feel like, since the media team got axed. And now everything they do just looks like a money grab, or just looks like incompetence.
Yeah.
Like, they can't get out of their own way. There's all these different things, like online qualifiers to go to the CrossFit games should never happen. Why not? Like, and this is an idea, and I don't even know how feasible it is, but let's talk about it. Find 10 gyms in each region. Here's the workouts. Like, we'll talk to you guys about what equipment we have access to. You can take in 100 athletes. You get to keep all the money, whatever you want to do, whatever. And you guys run an in-person qualifier, and we'll take 10 from each, and they can do the in-person. I don't know. Like, that's just super high level, super hypothetical. But like, the online qualifier to go to the CrossFit games should not happen.
No way. Dude, they did that. My gym ran it. So it was
it sectionals?
It was sectionals before sectionals.
Okay.
So, and Castro, and this when Tony Budding was there, and they ran that at a couple gyms. I ran it for one for the Northeast, and then the people that won at my facility went to Albany and competed in Albany.
Yeah.
And then the winners there went to the games, and it was fucking great because
it's awesome.
The community was so involved, right? Castro was giving advice on the workouts, make sure everything fit what they wanted to do. There's tons of communication. Justin was in charge of making sure all the affiliates had the right scoring and scorekeeping going down, right?
Yep.
So it was great. It was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that's the model right there. I know it's gotten bigger, and so you're going to have a team to do that, but it's like, it connects the athletes to the community. It lets the community have some buy-in, man. It's just like, we did the Mayhem Classic, and there was like, I appreciated the hands-offness of like, hey, you guys run a great event, here you go. But Dave showed up, and he's like, what's this workout? What are these work? Like, at no point was it ever like any type of feedback or anything like that. And so it's just, it's tough.
Would you take over CrossFit?
For the right, it'd have to be the right scenario. The hard part is, like, with Mayhem, would Mayhem be absorbed by CrossFit because I can't serve two masters type deal? I feel like I've got an incredible team here that we could scale and do that. Yes. But the answer is yes and no. Like, it'd have to be perfect world scenario. Man, if nothing changed about my life today, I'd be good to go. Like, I get to work out, I get to hang out with my kids and my wife, and I enjoy coming to the office most days, 99% of the days, like, so it would have to be like perfect world scenario. But I feel like with the team we have and what we're doing here, that we could do a damn good job.
Yeah. I mean, for you, I feel like, because you're crushing it, right? You have the gym, you have the online program, you have Froning Farms, you have coffee. Like, I'm probably missing things, but you have so many things and they're all doing so well. So for you to not have something absorb it, but potentially pulled, I feel like that'd be tough. But I feel like that's what CrossFit needs, is someone like you at the helm.
Well, it needs a rallying point too. Like, where is CrossFit?
Right.
I don't know. You don't know. Like, there's no gym for people to go to. Like, instead of traveling seminars, why don't we have a focal point that you can, like, come shadow for a week, or like send your coaches to, almost like a university for coaches type deal, or like, there's just so many possibilities and things that they could add on that they're just missing huge.
And they've never once tried to collect insight from. It's like, it's like they had for me, they had like the affiliate gatherings and the affiliate handbooks. Like, I don't need any of that shit. I've never looked at that stuff once in my life. I don't need any of that. It's like, what are you doing for me? I don't know.
Nothing, because you're not running any ads. You're not putting out any really cool media that people can get behind.
Right.
You're not like going out and, I don't know, man.
Yeah. Fuck it. You should just do it.
Hey, I need some money, because it's not free.
You need money, but you also need more time.
Yeah, need more time.
Yeah. All right. Let's switch gears a little bit. I want to talk about you competing. I almost look at it like talking to Michael Jordan, right? Have you ever seen the podcast? What's it called? Oh, I can't think of a name, but it's a basketball podcast. And all they do is they bring out old school basketball players and have them talk trash and relive stories. You know, and it's
All
the
right.
greatest. Like they had this one podcast up, and they had. Do you remember J.R. Ryder?
No. Who do you play
Okay,
for?
so he came out of California. He played at USC, and he went out to the Timberwolves. He was the first one to like go between his legs and dunk in a dunk
Okay.
contest. And
All
he
right.
was like a tough baller. Like he was talk trash. He was hard, and he was good. And he was playing the Bulls one time, and Kevin Garnett was a rookie. And he tells a story how J.R. Ryder is you know, he's like having like 20 points. Jordan's not really scoring a lot, and Garnett starts talking trash to Jordan.
Oh no. Game
And
over.
yeah, so J.R. Ryder, who is this tough dude from like, I don't know, like LA, Compton, California. Forgive me because I don't know where he's from, but he walks up to Jordan. He's like, hey, dude, like, he's a rookie. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Take
Like,
it
just
easy
ignore,
on
yeah,
him.
just ignore him. Like,
Because he knew what
and he said
happened.
Jordan looked at him and was like, okay.
Okay.
And he tells a story how like he didn't score any of the points and Jordan ended with like 38 points.
Uh,
Yeah, I mean, but like those
that's
stories are
awesome.
hilarious to me. So, to you as a competitor, being in the game for so long,
Hmm.
who I am convinced that you loved to fuck with athletes' heads all the time, right? Because I remember anytime I'd be there with my team or my athletes and you'd be in the corral, you'd always be standing around and you'd be like, man, this workout, this is going to be so hard. This is going to be tough. Like you'd always be saying stuff like that. And I'd be like, listen, I'd be like, don't listen to
Well,
Rich.
this is
Yeah,
good.
because he's going to make you think it's going to get tough. And you'd always do that stuff. And I'd be like, so I need to ask, did you do that on purpose?
Maybe sometimes.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, like there's some games. CrossFit is so different, and like you don't necessarily talk like shit one on one because you get beat all
Yeah.
really talk shit too. And so yeah, you know, I always told people I'm like, even if you're hurting, don't act like you're hurting
Hmm.
because, you know, people are gonna see that and that you're gonna mess with them more. You know, like I think some of the stuff that I brought was a little bit, you know, like when I first started, everybody was like, oh, I'm in my lane. I'm not looking at anybody else. I'm just going to do my race. And that's bullshit. You know, like you've got to play the game. It's a long game. So, you know, like if you're ahead or way ahead, or if you can't catch up or, you know, like you know, like you're conserving in certain spots. You're playing a points game. Once you get ahead, you're like, all right, now like I can't have any major flops. I can't do X or whatever. But then, yeah, you know, you got to, honestly, for me, the team stuff was so much fun because you know I got to suffer with people, see what you know kind of sacrifices they made, but then also you know we got to play some games with other people because man, when you get in those corrals with people, the terror on their face, and you just you know you don't want to like push them over the edge, but you want to nudge them a little bit closer, you know, like
Oh,
or at least like get them to spill the beans on some strategy every once in a while.
yeah. I see. I was convinced that you knew what you were doing. It was like, oh, Rich is so nice. He's talking to me. I'm like, he's getting in your fucking head right now, guys. I'm like,
I'm nice.
relax.
I'm nice.
All right. So, who was your favorite person to compete with?
With like on a team.
On one of your teams, yeah.
Oh man,
Because
Ray.
you've had some great people to be with.
Yeah,
I mean,
I mean all
yeah,
of them were great. I mean, me and
yeah.
Hobart super close. So that was fun. He, you know, we did a lot of individual training against each other,
Hmm.
but with each other. So that was a ton of fun. Evan Darren on my team, being family,
Yep.
and seeing, you know, doing that was awesome. I think like Dre, you know, moving here to try to do the individual thing, was on the team for that year, and just how much of a dog he was. Like you ask him to do anything, and he was gonna hurt, right? And Cornway was awesome that one year, man. He like I wish he could put it together as an individual because as a teammate, you know, he was incredible. And so on the guys' side, those are the ones that stick out. You know, me and Dre had a lot of miles together, and we won, which was a ton of fun. That summer was probably one of the fitter times I've ever been was with Dre. As far as the girls go, man, that China Tasia team was a ton of fun. Those girls were just super easy and low stress. Low Tasia most of the time was low stress, but just the sweetest person on the planet. And
Yep.
then, you know, the two I would say the OC3 girls because that's kind of how we met them. Those two are the fiercest, nastiest competitors you've ever met.
Mm.
And so, man, it was fun to be around them, but almost like you had to be like, hey, girls, chill out. Like, you know, like, cause
Yeah.
they were so, like, when we were training, man, like, they just wanted to do more and more and more, which we already do a ton of volume.
Yep.
And so for them to be like, oh, we didn't do enough today, I'm like, I'm good. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like if we didn't touch a barbell every single day, they thought we were getting weaker. You know,
Yeah.
it
So
was
hot seat.
nasty.
You have to pick one guy and two
Okay,
girls.
man.
And for everybody listening, he loves everybody.
I do. Man, there was something special about that. Dre, Tasia, China team. Everybody just got along really well, and yeah, I mean, that was just a ton of fun. Yeah, that's probably like one of my more favorite years. Just because we spent a ton of time together, those four.
What do you think was the? I always looked at you guys the way you guys competed, and every time I'd have teams in the games, but you guys just got to like study Rich and study Mayhem. And you always, every single year, it didn't matter who the team was, who the athletes were, your teams always had this amazing presence of togetherness, fortitude, and belief. And it's like your execution on movements and workouts and transitions to me was like amazing. And is that something that the people just brought naturally because they were such high level, or did you have to keep working on them with it, or maybe it was a little bit of both? But it was every single year, like your team's ability to manipulate movement to your advantage, whether it's like rope climb technique or barbell changing based around fatigue, whether it's your transitional work between movements. It was, and your guys' ability just to like just be fucking dogs for the entire weekend, right? Where did that come from? How did you get them to do that after all year after year?
I mean, I think it has to do with being really good individual athletes. I would say that team that we had the last year with Cornway and the two girls, all four of us could have made it individually. That helps immensely. When everybody's super fit, you just don't want to be the one letting the team down. I think that's kind of the mentality of everybody we had, was like nobody wanted to be the weak link. And if they were the weak link, they knew somebody was going to pick them up. We had a lot of
Man.
selfless people on there, and we did a shit ton of volume and a bunch of different variations of workouts. And so like we would show up to the game sometimes and it was almost like we've done a version of this workout. And so like you just fell back into that, right? I mean, we had, like you said, we had a bunch of dogs that just, they loved working out. We loved hanging out. And so we were going to work out anyway. And so there was inner team competition because you didn't want to be the weak link, and then also you didn't want to get beat by somebody on the team. And so, man, it was just, we had just really good culture around here. And not to say that there weren't times where you're playing politician of like, hey, I'm pretty non-emotional and I'm really bad with female emotions. And so usually I had dudes that could handle the female emotions, because my fallback when girls start crying is to like pat them on the shoulder and tell them they're okay, because I just don't, that's just not the way I operate. Like
Yeah.
Hillary, even, like some of the girls would go to Hillary and be like, hey, I just don't think he like understands. And she's like, oh, he doesn't, like he doesn't even respond to me with, emotion at times, because it's just not who I am. And so I think the girls did a real good job of understanding that and knowing, hey, I'm probably not going to get that from Rich, but it doesn't mean he doesn't care. Like I'll still, like though any of our teammates, if they called and needed anything, I'd be right there. And so, yeah, I think it's just a combination of all those things. We had a bunch of good leaders. Everybody was a leader in and of their self. And so like at any point, they were selfless, and it was just, we had really good teams. And I don't know if that was just perfect, recruiting or whatever you want to call it, or just like people being attracted to that and
Hmm.
wanted to be a part of that. And then just that was the expectation. And, I think that starts with that first year where people just probably didn't want to let me down or ruin the legend of whatever it had been created. And
Yeah.
so, man, we just had a lot of really good people through the years. I think it was like what, 20 something people, I think, on those teams, which is kind of
Some
crazy to think
crazy.
about.
Yeah, it's crazy. You always had strong culture. Was that something that you would talk to people about, or was it just kind of like the way you handled yourself and everything around you?
I think my leadership style is what more of a like by doing versus like, I'm not a rah gonna get up and like I'm not gonna probably motivate you. It's just gonna be a bunch of swearing at you and basically like, hey, you can do this. More like belief than like, I think it was just understood that, hey, this is what we're gonna do, and it's what's expected. There's a funny story when we were at Wadapalooza. Dre was on the team, Kristen Miller and Tasia. It was before China. It was that weird year of sectional or sanctionals where you could change people and whatever.
Yeah.
And so we were on a worm workout. We were out of contention. We had no chance of winning. I had like, we'd get first or second on an event, we'd get dead last on an event. And so it's the final event, worm clean and jerks. We have a chance to win it. And Dre is like on his knees, right, on the worm. And we're kind of all waiting on him. So I just go in his ear and I'm like, say a few choice things, but real calmly, right?
Yeah.
And so Jared Stevens with 417, he competed for a long time. He's like, hey, man, what'd you say to Dre? It really like looked uplifting and like got him moving. And he was real motivated. And But Dre was the type of guy you just had to tell him how big a piece of shit he was, and he would do
Yeah.
whatever. Like he's like, "Yep, you're right," and he would
Yeah.
do it, man. Like those, and so I think it's just learning how different people are motivated, and like for the most part, the dudes, you wanted to create competition between all of us, really, not like negative, but
Hmm.
also like a little bit of competition. But then the girls, you just needed to tell them they were good. Like you're good, you're fine, we're gonna be great, and like just give them a little bit of like you believe in them, and they all just did it. But I'm not going to pretend that I'm like some magician on like hype speeches, but as a kid, my parents were the hardest two, or are still the hardest two working people in any room they walk into. They're not going to like tell you good job ever. They're not going to do anything like that. It's just understood that's what we're doing and that's the work. And to my, like, I need to every once in a while tell people around here, hey, you're doing a good job, but it also like stops them in their tracks. They're like,
They're like, what the fuck? What's going on right
what
now?
is going on right now? I know that's something that I need to do better.
Yeah. I want to circle back to Hillary
Yep.
because she's amazing, and
Awesome. Yep.
and I remember at the games, I tell this story, and I probably say it wrong, but I tell it a lot to people because I just talk about like A, being able to turn the page, but B, how important it is to have someone who always has your back no matter what, right? And was it the triple three workout? Is that what they called it? It was the row, 300 double unders run. Yeah, and you got hit hard, right?
Almost. Yep.
Pummeled,
Yep.
right? And you were sitting there, and I was standing next to you, and Hillary came over, and I don't know exactly what she said to you, but you were like pissed off, and she says something like, "Just fucking move on, like stop thinking about it," or something along those lines, right? And then you just,
So there's, and I don't know if it was this time, but it might have been. It was the previous year, and we had the swim event. No, it might have been that year. We were sitting there, and she walked up, and she's like, you're not having fun. And I was like, hell no, I'm not having fun. Like this, bitching about whatever. And she's like, well, get your stuff. Let's go home.
yeah, that's right,
She's
yeah,
like, tell Dave you're leaving. And I was like, I can't tell Dave I'm leaving. She's like, well, if you're not going to have fun, there's no point in being here. It's so funny. And like, she's just never played sports, right? But I also knew that I knew my worth in her eyes was not attached to how I was
right,
competing physically. And man, it's honestly, it's the way it is with my faith. And, I've been real vocal about my faith. And I think a lot of people see Christians as like, like they're weak because, they don't care if they win. Like, dude, I'm the most competitive person you've ever met,
mm-hmm,
but I'm able to detach who I am in competition. Like I'm gonna be pissed off for a couple days, maybe even a month or three, But I know that my worth is not wrapped up in who I am in CrossFit. Growing up, it was baseball, then it was firefighting, and then it became CrossFit until I kind of had this like attachment to who I was in Christ. And so for me, at that point, there was this major switch of like, yeah, I'm still as competitive as I ever was, but it doesn't define me as a person, where I finish in the CrossFit games, So like Hillary was like an extension of that, where it's like I remember the first time I snatched 300, and she's like, "Cool, go take out the garbage," Like I
right,
don't know what that means, and I don't care.
yeah, right. Which is great, right? Because it's that foundation, So I try to do that with my kids a lot, where we all say our prayers together as a family at night because they need to learn they're not what they do, right? And that's something that I never had. Like I always believed in God and I had a strong background, but I connected myself to basketball. And when that ended, I was a disaster. I was a mess, right? And I still catch myself connecting me and my
Oh
worth
yeah.
to things I do, right? Whether it's like coaching or like getting athletes to certain places. And if it doesn't happen, I'm like, oh, what the fuck? And like you said, like Josh will be like, who fucking cares? Like, who cares? Like,
Yeah.
none of that matters to me or your
Doesn't
kids.
matter. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, you're right.
But we wrap that stuff so much up in our brain. Like even, I've gotten into hunting in the last little bit. Like it's like a competition to me, right? And then when I come home with something, I'm just like, I wasted 4 or 5 days in the woods or out west or doing whatever. But then Hillary's like, you come home a better person still because you've detached from the world. You're
Mhm.
like wrapped up in something else because it's all I can think of. And so, it's, it's, I would be lying to say that, oh, I found my faith and everything's been 100% and it's never a battle. That's not true at all. Every day I'm like, disconnect from where I am in the world and my worldly standing, and where am I at in Christ. And so for me, that's been awesome, and it's been cool to be able to like pass that on to my kids now too. And I had really, and I kind of came to this realization. I did a podcast with a guy. He wrote these really cool books about David. They're historical fiction, but he came out and, growing up, and this is not a knock whatsoever, but all of my faith role models were women, right?
Right.
And so faith was tough for me to like, it was very preachy, very religious, very soft. And I want to be, like I want to, for Trice especially, my girls too, but like for Trice, I want him to like have a male, like what does male Christianity mean? Like it's different for a man and a woman. Like we're just different, like I don't care what you say, we're different. And so I had that kind of epiphany that I was like, dang, like my dad now is way more vocal about his faith. My grandpa is more vocal about his faith. But when I was a kid, it was like my grandma was, super vocal. Both my grandmas and my mom, they look at it from a different way than I do. And so I don't know. It's just been pretty cool to have.
Yeah. Have you ever, I know you run a ton of camps, right? And I always wanted to ask you this. Would you ever run, or do you run, I just don't know about it, a specific, I feel like you have so much knowledge to give in competing and athlete development. Like, I know you have like a ton of online athletes and a ton of competitors you work with, but just doing like, trying to think of the right word to phrase it, just like how to compete better, how to do the sport better,
Man,
where you just kind of just lecture.
I'm not much of a lecturer. We went to that coaches congress and I didn't really know they wanted a lecture previous to me getting up there. I thought it was all Q&A. And
Yeah.
about 10 minutes before, they're like, hey, we want you to actually give a talk on how to get your members to compete. And like, how would you train that and whatever. And to my surprise, I was like, I'll get up there for like 10 minutes and talk, and then I'll let questions for 45 minutes. I spoke for 45 minutes. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't as bad. Once I got rolling, it was
Yeah.
fine. Man, it's hard for me, like here, it's hard for me to walk in there because I want to do the stuff I used to be able to do. And my left knee, really, honestly, everything else is good, but my left knee is just like, nah, dude, we're not doing that. And so it's hard for me to walk back there in the athlete facility and, like start barking orders. But if any of the athletes come to me and ask, man, I'm open book. Like, but I was never the type of athlete that, needed that. Like, it's hard. I don't know. It's hard to put into words, but I never needed somebody to like tell me how to compete. It's just who I was and what I was doing. Right. And so, I don't ever want to step on toes and be like, hey man, you should think about it this way. But if an athlete ever comes up and is like, hey man, will you help me with this? I'm 100% open to it. I just never really, once again, I'm not a rah get in your face type of guy, but I'm also like, hey, you need to be thinking about X or whatever. So anytime they want to ask or want to talk about it, I'm open to it. I've just never really thought about doing that. It'd have to be more like Q&A, I think.
I hope any of the young athletes listening reach out to you right now.
Yeah, I'm open, man. I enjoy that. Like that's who I am. It's who I was for years. And obviously the programming side I'm still heavily involved in.
Yep. What do you think younger athletes could be doing better to set themselves up for success? I guess I'll have to say I'll call it the sport of fitness just because we don't know where CrossFit's going to be, right? But you have other things popping up. So, but to set themselves up for success, people are specializing a lot more, a lot younger now. And
yeah,
there's still people who are choosing to participate in CrossFit versus college sports with, I don't know if I agree on that one, but
yeah, I'm so mixed on that, man. I think in high school, middle school, play as many sports as you can. I think building a foundation, you learn how to work with other people, you learn how to work with good coaches, you learn how to handle bad coaches. I think
yeah,
youth sports are something that should be emphasized. I'm not opposed if you can start making some money and not going the college sport route because like at this point, yeah, you're getting that. I think competing is a big thing. Like you've got to learn what's going to happen um when shit goes south in a
right.
competition, how you're going to respond to that, doing hard things, challenges, whatever. I think obviously once you have a basis of the movement knowledge, technique, and those types of things, and if I've kind of like worked on weaknesses or built up a base of strength and then also working on engine stuff, I see so many athletes that have it physically, but mentally they just don't have it, or they fall apart, or they don't know what happens when they get punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
Like early on in my career, there was desperation, right? Like, hey, this is how I'm going to make my livelihood. This is how I'm going to set my family up. And then once things get soft, you're kind of like, oh, I'm good. And so how are you going to respond to that? There's just so many things that go into it, and you can learn from doing really just things outside your comfort zone, going to local competitions, doing different there's like a balance, right? Where if you're always competing, you're never really training for anything, but in the opposite to that is you need to learn what's going to happen when you get punched in the mouth.
Yeah. Going back to what you just said is you made it. Like you made it, and you made it early on in your CrossFit career, and you kept winning individually, and then you made it even more and you kept winning on a team and just showing up and just dominating, like literally just fucking dominating for so long while still having that cushion, right?
Yeah.
Family, the house, the
Yeah.
car, whatever. How are you able to keep doing that?
And I just think, I'm one of 32 first cousins. 25 of us are boys, like I hate losing. And when I was
Yeah.
a kid, everything was a competition because I thought they were trying to figure out which one of us was like the most dominant cousin. And now being a parent, I just realized they were trying to tire us out.
Yeah, right.
But they created this complex, and they've created it in all of us, like
Yeah.
that's just who I am. It's in my nature, like I have to compete in something. It's just if I don't, is if there's not something to aim at, then I'm just kind of like not hopeless by any means, but I need a target. I need something. I'm not a goals, like I don't need a 6-month goal or a 3-month goal. I need like a target out there, right? Something to aim at. And, if I have that, I'm good. Like it gives me purpose. It gives me something to wait. Like obviously have something to wake up for with my family and
Mhm.
kids. But I still need to have like I was doing Leadville the last 2 years.
Yeah, right.
Man, I needed to do that, and this year I'm not going to do it. Last year was good, so I'm like still kind of searching for that. Like, what is that? I'm going to do a couple local competitions. We're doing one in Michigan, one in Tech, and two in Texas. And so like those are kind of like mini targets, right? But I'm like, all right, what's the next challenge I'm doing? I'm doing a 24-hour mountain bike race with 4 guys, which is fun. So like those types of things. I need to like. I always joke. Kind of my goals now are. Um, I need to look good with my shirt off because that's what sells, right? Like,
Yeah.
as lame as it sounds, that's what sells. I need to be able to do hard things because, like, you got to have that mental check in. Like, on the fly, we did a 12-hour mountain bike race the other day. 2 people. I hadn't been on
Damn.
my mountain bike since November.
Yeah.
And it was awful. And I thought about quitting the whole time, but we finished. We do that 24-hour row. We're going to do it, whatever. So I need to be able to do hard things on command. And then every once in a while, when the athletes want me to work out, I need to be able to like show them old man can still
Hell
hang on
yeah.
some things, right? So like I need that edge every once in a while. So those are my main goals for fitness right now. And I don't know if I don't know why, but man, I liked winning and hated losing.
Yeah. Do you let them know when you beat the young boys?
No, they know.
They, they know.
They know. They know.
I love it. Rich, I told you 40. We've been over an hour.
Let's do it again, man.
I want to be respectful for your time. I feel like I have so many more things I want to talk to you about. So I'd love to maybe do this
Let's do it
again a
again.
little bit. Yeah, I want to
Yeah.
talk about like young competitors and just there's so much. But bro, thank you
Well,
for everything.
hey, how about next time you come down, let's actually do a podcast at the studio instead of you not actually coming over when, you're 30 minutes from the house.
I don't have a car, but I'll find a way. I'll
Oh,
be there.
okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I'll
All
be
right.
there, 100%.
All right. Do it.
All right. Hey, thanks for everything, my man. Love you, buddy.
Stay in
Tell
touch,
Hill,
brother.
tell the fam I said hi.
Will do. Love you.
All right,
Bye.
dude. Later.